Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This prestigious Specialized World Expo, welcoming over 4 million visitors from around the globe.
Environment where visitors can explore, interact, and be inspired. Every country brings its unique spirit and creativity to the expo. Let me show you 2 outstanding examples.
This is also what is needed.
Sure of winning that conflict. So America is not an important ally, it's an indispensable part of our security. So when they come asking for our help, you've got to think long and hard before you refuse it, because if they are an indispensable part of our security, we should stand with them if we can. And that doesn't mean to say joining every action they do. I mean, for example, I don't think this was ever going to happen. If they seriously considered taking Greenland or something, of course you wouldn't have said yes to that. But this is action in respect of Iran, and we were being asked for support, not to be part of the military action.
Can we out-manufacture them? No. But we don't need to out-manufacture them to make the situation I've just described infeasible. There's a world where they have 100 times more ballistic missiles than us, and we still have enough between us and our allies to deny them access to Taiwan. And this is my crazy theory, and people can disagree with me, but I'm just going to point out, nobody in history has ever built a gigantic amphibious landing force, used it once, and then dismantled it, except for the United States. We are the sole example in history. People will point out other ones that were defeated, other ones that got destroyed by storms. But if they succeed, I think history, and then also the words out of Xi Jinping's own mouth, shows if they take Taiwan, they're immediately going to hop over to Okinawa and or part of the Philippines, maybe part of Vietnam as well. Korea, they probably stay away from for a variety of reasons. But I don't know if anyone's seen this, but you have Xi Jinping going out now in the last year saying, oh, I was in our national archives and I was reading about the Ryukyu Islands, which is Okinawa. He says, I found out that 650 years ago, they actually sent this gift to us. And that means that they're a tributary state to China. And it's a national embarrassment that we did not defend them from the Imperial Japanese invasion. Therefore, we need to reconsider the Ryukyu Islands issue. And he's not saying this because he actually loves wandering the national archives and looking up obscure tributary states. They are constructing a national narrative that would allow them to convince their people to start with Taiwan, end with a lot of our Pacific allies.
International relations as embodied in the relations of heads of state. So if he's friends with Xi Jinping, he thinks that U.S.-China state-to-state relations are in great shape. He calls Xi king. He said at the Osaka G20 meeting when they were having a bilateral, you're the greatest leader of China since Mao Zedong, which caught everybody a little bit by surprise. But then he said, in fact, you're the greatest leader in Chinese history. That's how things go. He thinks he's friends with Xi Jinping and with Vladimir Putin. And I will guarantee you, that's not how they see Trump. I think they both see him as an easy mark.
I'm going to jump to the questions that you...
Decision-making consists of Trump sitting behind his resolute desk in the Oval Office, 5 or 6 people in a semicircle in front of him, and he says, I think we'd like to do X. That's when Pete Hegseth says, yes, sir, we'll do that. That's decision-making.
If the United States wants to project power, military or otherwise, in the Middle East, say in Iran right now, it has absolutely no chance to operate without European bases. And the big hullabaloo in the beginning of the Iran operation was that there was one country, Spain, that didn't allow the US to do that. And that created then an ongoing rhetoric. And then there was, I admit, quite strong language about, is this our war or not?
Whether they felt any shame, I mean, our Western colleagues, we received a response that has become emblematic of the moral decline of the European diplomacy. No, we do not feel ashamed. The permanent representative of Latvia went even further, calling the strike on the college a provocation and the Kremlin fake, thus denying the very existence of the destroyed dormitory, the dead and wounded students, the rescue efforts, and the grief of their families. Equally appalling was the statement by the representative of the Kiev regime.
Well, welcome back to the SCIF. You know what? I honestly don't know how they are doing this. I rebooted our system, but we're getting these weird instructions put into our system to mute the sound. It's happened sometime now. We're about to replace everything and start over and try to fix whatever they're doing to us. But sorry for that. Let's talk about the show again. Want to say hello to the crew in the chat. Thanks for the notes that there was no sound. Really appreciate that. Check out whatfinger.com, great aggregator site. You saw Tony Blair in the cold open. He looks like he went to the same plastic surgeon that Joe Biden went to. His face is just like flat. It's weird. And you saw the CEO of Anduril talking about Chinese expansion. We're going to dig into that later in the show, not today, but later this week, maybe trying to get some guests on to talk about if that's a good possibility. I haven't really looked into that, but I'm going to, because that's important. I didn't, that was interesting to me. So is China going to look at taking more islands? We'll deal with that. And I've got a hell of a show for you today. Thierry Laurent is going to join us because is Macron collapsing? This is a big deal. And we want to get it from the horse's mouth in Europe from one of our best analysts on the continent. Thierry knows what's going on in France. And then in the second half of the show, we've got Shahine Gobadi from the Iranian Resistance. I guarantee you're not going to get this from anywhere else. And we are the ones bringing you what the Iranian people want on the ground to take care of their own country. All right, I'm going to redo the mission brief here. Today is May 27th. I'm your host, Todd Wood. Here's your mission brief. Bond market flashing warning signs. I'm an old bond trader. I want you to be aware of this. Peace with Iran is elusive, and Israel doesn't like it. We're going to discuss that. Mamdani seizing property in New York City, block by block. This one is scary, and I want you to know what's happening in the Big Apple. Roblox highlighted in Connecticut, but they're ignoring the trans manipulation of children. In Israeli-Turkey tension rising. We've been talking about this story for some time, but we're going to stay on it because it's important. All right, I'm going to bring Thierry in, and we're going to discuss what's happening in France. My friend, thank you for coming on today.
Hello, Todd. How are you doing? Thank you very much for inviting me on your show again. It's always a great pleasure, in fact, to discuss the situation, especially in the global environments that we are facing, in regard of the fact that the instability all over the world is set up, and we might be facing a lot of terrible events in the next 6 months, either in Europe because of the conflict that is opposing Ukraine to Russia, and of course, United States and Israel facing Iran.
Well, my friend, I wanted to bring you on because I saw Marine Le Pen's party was bubbly and jumping up and down because of what's going on in France. Is Macron going to lose power? What's happening?
Well, you know, we should be very cautious regarding, in fact, the appearance. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing a lot of thinking in regard of the question that you have been asking me, and I would like, in fact, to backtrack a little bit in the way that we can understand how we have been ending into this situation. I do believe, after so much thinking and analysis, that Macron has been putting together the architecture of the French political landfill destruction, and he did it on purpose and consciously. And so basically, let's look a little bit what has been happening for the last 9 years in France to understand what is going to be the next step. So I do believe that his goal was about, in fact, to destroy the political structure in the way that it will be replaced by a supranational entity called the European Union. And his ambition is about to be the president of Europe. That is certainly the reason why he has been destroying all the parties. So basically, initially, Macron, when he entered politics, he has been pursued as Minister of the Economy, and we didn't know where this guy is coming from. An invented family, a troubled relationship with a woman, said that it's a man, story that has been humiliating France during the last 9 very long and painful years. He has constituted governments out of the blue, pumping selectively people from the center, the left and the right parties, but excluding the extremities, the extreme right and the extreme left. So basically, the fact that all those politicians have been accepting, in fact, to reach its government is showing at which point those guys, they have absolutely no conviction. They are looking for glories, for light, incentives, and high salary. But at the end of the story, let's look at what has been happening at the end. All those 3 major parties that were constituting the base of our political system has been completely wiped out. There is absolutely nobody within, in fact, those parties right now, which leave, in fact, 2 extreme parties, the Mélenchon and the Marine Le Pen / Bardella, which are completely in opposition. And I do believe that this is not going to fit the requirements that the nation is going to follow up on for the next election. So basically, right after his election, he has been implementing the 2030 agenda of the WEF to satisfy, of course, his sponsors with the carbon tax, the LGBT movement, which has been leading to the destruction of the national cohesion and leave, in fact, in total disarray the image of our nation. You remember the episode of the Hero Jacket, and he was not able, in fact, to settle down the situation. Fortunately, the COVID has been helping and saving Private Macron. During about 3 years, we had people every weekend in the street protesting and setting up major trouble within, in fact, all the cities. It was a situation absolutely chaotic. And this guy was not able, in fact, to understand what the people wanted. And the people wanted, in fact, to live decently over the salaries, which was not the case. And it's even worse right now. We will go through that in a while. So basically, what we've been observing is that his Machiavellic tactic is about to oppose people to each other. And especially during the COVID-19, orchestrating a massive campaign of denigration against those people refusing the transgenic injection. And what we know today is that the number of cancer in France has been increasing by 1,260%. We are looking at our demographic right now, and there are more people dying than people, than kids getting born. Which is like worrisome for the next.
What about the Muslim population? Are they growing faster than the whites? Of course, right?
Well, there is 2 phenomena here, and this is something that I wanted, in fact, to talk about in the next chapter. I want to speak about. You have the population that has been migrating during the 70s, because during the period of 50s, 70s, in fact, to rebuild France after the Second World War. And the 3rd generation does not want to match our requirements in terms of way of living. So basically, they are seceding in regard of our way of our constitution and our way of living. But Macron has been putting together all the mechanisms necessary to increase this phenomenon even in the worst manner. the last 9 years, he has been opening the gate for immigration at a pace of, if I remember well, I think it's 28,000 people every month. Every month for almost 10 years. What does it mean? It means that the population in France has been increasing by 3.5 million people coming from abroad without the same culture, without the same way of living, without the same way of doing things and thinking and so on. People that cannot integrate themselves because they cannot understand the way that we have been evolving for the last 200 years. You see? So basically, effectively, we have like this demographic that is exogenous, and we have the demographic coming from a Muslim population that is way above, in fact, what the residents of France, the rates that residents of France used to have. So effectively, right now, we are facing something like 12 to 14 million people that are not related to our way of living. And this is major. This is really major. I don't know if you have been seeing what has been happening today in La Baule. La Baule is a kind of residential summer station where people that has a certain standard of living are living in or coming to enjoy, in fact, weekends or vacation. And we have like a horde of 200 to 300 people that has been taking the train to go inside of the resort and destroy everything and beat the people in the street. It was just unbelievable. It used to be a place where people are relaxing, and suddenly it became a zone of chaos. We're not used to that. You know, we want to live decently, we want to live in peace. And right now we have a chunk of population that want to secede and want to impose, in fact, their chaos way of living. You see? So basically, to come back to the story of Macron, the last 9 years, what we have been witnessing is a sort of valse of minister, to the point that from a month to another one, we cannot even remember the name of the ministers. Can you believe that in 9 years, we had 6 prime ministers, 7 ministers of education, and so on? So basically, what Macron is doing is taking one guy, force him, in fact, to impose a reform, which is against, in fact, the will of the population or its well-being. And at the end of the story, as soon as the job is done, because he's using an article of our constitution called 49.3 to impose a law without having to vote for it. Okay? So basically, as soon as this is done, he takes the guy through it. And he has been doing this during 9 years, to a point that right now, his government is dried out. They have absolutely no credibility, no power, nothing. But this is done on purpose. Don't forget what is his final goal. So basically, you might think that he is in a weakness situation when, in fact, it's not, because this is what he wanted.
So what you're saying is he wants to destroy the French system of government to bring in a new system, is what you're saying, correct?
He wants to make sure that this is Europe that is going to lead the way that nations need to behave and need to roll out their legislation. And actually, what is kind of surprising is that he knows that Mélenchon has, meaning the far left, has absolutely no chance to take the power. But he's very scared of Marine Le Pen or Bardella, because we don't know who is going to be introduced and intronized to present to the future election in 2027. Marine Le Pen has a major lawsuit on the shoulder, and now she is in the expectation to be expelled out of the election. So Bardella is just bumping the torso, saying, oh, I am going to be the big boy, I'm going to lead the country and this and that, because the media on top of it are pushing him to the top. And I do believe that, and this is a technique that the media are practicing a lot in France, because when they want a guy to be completely shut down, they are pushing him above, and as soon as he's as high as necessary, then they find a story, in fact, to kill him. And actually, there is something very fishy in this story, because, you know, Bardella, when you listen to his speeches within the European Union Parliament, if you put him a skirt and a wig, a blonde wig, you have the feeling to hear von der Leyen. So basically, I do believe that he is under control kind of opposition. And when you see his alignment to NATO, his alignments to Ukraine, his alignments to the European Union, to the Euro system, and so on, you're like, whoa, are you sure you are a party of opposition?
So
I don't think that
he is the guy that was gonna. He is the guy that was gonna be the savior of, you know, of Marine Le Pen and basically save France. And you're saying he's on the take, it looks like, from Ursula, is what you're saying. Right?
Of course, he's under control. And on top of it, he's a liar, because I'm gonna give you a scoop. He is not heterosexual. He has been
pretty well known.
Well, he was all over the newspaper with a blonde kind of noble woman, very fresh and so on. In fact, to build a story that does not make any sense at all, because nobody is a fool, you know, in the story. We all know. If you look at his behavior, the way that he speaks, the way that he's moving his hand and so on, you understand immediately who is he, you know. So basically, this guy.
Let me ask you: did he work for Rothschild Bank just like Macron? I mean, is it?
Not yet. He might be higher after he would be elected, and I cross my finger that the people in France will be lucid enough, in fact, to understand who is he and the kind of individual we will have to deal with. Actually, you know, I cross my finger very hard that Philippe de Villiers, who used to be a minister in the 80s, and a guy who is extremely well structured, and he has a level of culture, understanding of relationship between nations, the legislative system. He's like a well of knowledge. You know, this guy is really brilliant. And there is a channel in France called CNews that is pushing him to the top every Friday. I do believe that at the last moment, he will propose his candidature to the election. And if he does not, then we have a problem. And it's very serious. Do you see Attal, who has been 3 months Minister of the Education, who is also a very nice little boy, you know? And 6 months Prime Minister, he hasn't been doing anything in his life, nothing. And on top of it, he is lying regarding his origins. And I'm going to explain you. His grandfather used to be from Ukraine. And his real name is Korisov. He used to live 80 kilometers from Odessa in the north. They had a massive castle. And during the Bolshevik Revolution, they have been moving to France, and they have been changing their name. So basically from Korisov, they get called de Kouris. And his mother has been getting married with a Jewish guy, Ashkenaz from Morocco. And this is how he has been propelled into the political system. When he didn't finish his studies, he was just like coming out of the blue. At the beginning, he had a relationship with a young woman who was extremely influential in the political system, but he was just lying regarding his nature. He has been using her. That's all. So basically, if you look at the political landfill and the people acting within our political parties, you just realize that, honestly speaking, if you had in fact to elect one of those guys, who you would choose? Because none of them, absolutely none of them, are respecting their population, are working in the sense of the well-being of the population. They are just like aligned on a system of corruption in the way that they can fill their pocket as much as they can.
It's very similar. It's similar all over the world. As you know, it's you see all these globalist governments, and it's the same techniques. You know.
where it has been taking proportions at this level that are very scary. Macron has been selling 220 companies that were, structurally speaking, strategic for our industries. And we do believe that he has been receiving commission out of it, absolutely monstrous. Example, the story of Alstom. There's a book that has been written by one of our deputy, Mr. Morlex. We found Mr. Morlex a few weeks before to release the book, hanging in his office and his feet touching the ground. How can you die with your feet touching the ground if you're hanging yourself? This is absolutely impossible. So basically what we are facing up here is a total disarray of the political landfill of our country without any replacement, but one guy that can be like a providential, but is he going, in fact, to make the step out of the risk it represents? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Now, if we have to come back to Macron himself, there is just one word that is coming to my mind. It's called the humiliation of a transgressive individual complacent with borderline rules and ideology. Several events to picture the full story of his mandate. Remember his first meeting with Trump, when Donald Trump grabbed him by the hands and pulled him as if it was a little boy. And you see this guy smiling like stupidly, like as if he was following his father. This image for me is just terrible. It is a resume of who is this guy. When he's sitting in front of Vladimir Putin, in fact, to convince him for not attacking, knowing that, in fact, this is the Ukrainian, that they were ready to attack the Donbass in 2022. And he put him at the extremity of a 6-meter Chippendale table. The symbol is absolutely incredible, meaning, I don't want to talk to you. You are going to stay at a certain distance. You can make the talk. I'm going to be having a good sleep. And when it's finished, I'm going to come back to my office to work.
Well, Macron, if I'm not wrong, just made a big deal of calling Lukashenko and telling him, don't come into the war. I mean, am I right? I mean, was he scolding Lukashenko in Belarus?
Honestly speaking, does he have any credibility? Remember what has been happening when he visited Xi Jinping with van der Leyen. Xi Jinping has been sitting him on the small tabouret. He has a table under the chin. So basically, if you look at most of the real leaders in the world, nobody's taking him seriously. And Macron, what he don't understand is that there is a cabinet that has been set up in Russia, which is led by Sergei Glaziev. I met with Glaziev 2 times last year in May and in June. And what I have been understanding is that there is a lot of work that are set up, in fact, to merge the 2 countries. For which reason? Because in such a geopolitical environment, being a nation of 9 million people in this geographic context, with the Baltics, with the Polish, it is kind of very risky. And you can get attacked from a different side.
Yeah, they have the union state. I mean, that is a political union. It's not full yet, but I think they're moving in that direction.
Yeah. And actually, I was discussing with Glaziev, and I was saying that, how it is possible that you are not envisioning, in fact, to merge the 2 states. And they say, well, this is what we are working on. So basically, I do believe that one of these days, Belarus, Lukashenko is going to announce that they are going to merge to be because Belarus and Russian people, they are the same people, the same culture, same language, the same mentality. And so basically they have been splitting after the Berlin Wall has been collapsing. But I do not see the reason why they wouldn't do that. There is absolutely. And on top of it, Belarus not producing so much and having an industry that is limited, being integrated into such a country, well, that would be helping the population, in fact, to boost their standard of living, you see?
Well,
and on top of it,
about Eastern Europe in a second, but let's finish Macron. What do you think is going to happen to him? What do you think is coming for France?
So, well, in regard of the way that he tries, in fact, to influence the situation with Belarus, he is like this kind of a little rooster that tried to bomb the torso, but he don't have the means of it. Look at what he has been doing during the Iranian crisis.
Yeah.
He has been sending the Charles de Gaulle, in fact, to Cyprus. For what? For what? After Israel has been bombing the airport, in fact, in the false flag, what he was doing there is absolutely no sense. Do you see Macron giving the order of our army, in fact, to go after Belarus, knowing that those guys, they got equipped with MiG-31 and a nuclear missile, with Oreshnik? This is nonsense. If our military people are lucid enough, they would never, ever try to make a move on this kind of risk. Because I can ensure them 100% that the answer would be swift, quick, and violent. Because
what do
Lukashenko...
you think is going to happen to Macron? Is he going to stay in power, or what plays out in France?
Well, let's look at the global picture on the economical point of view. The Iran crisis, which is a catalyzer, is going to kill completely the European economy, and especially ours. Because we are one of the pile that is supporting, on a financial point of view, Europe. Macron is just like trying to send check in blank, here and there, promising Africa that he will help them by sending $17 billion. We are not even able, in fact, to raise money on the market to support our debt right now. We are in a debt trap. And on top of it, if you look at the impact that the Iran crisis had on the economy, this is really scary.
Yeah.
The PMI index has been dropping to 42.3. You realize what does it mean? At 50,
you're not making anything. Yeah.
Exactly. So basically, the rate of unemployment is going to skyrocket to 10.5 to 11%. And this guy wants, in fact, to sustain the effort of war against Russia. This is nonsense. But don't forget one thing. He's a transgressive individual. So basically, he might be surfing on the pseudo-risk that he would be inventing with Merz. Stammer will be completely out of the equation. And perhaps that he will surf, in fact, this instability and this fear the way he has been doing it during the COVID crisis, to cancel the election by saying, oh, we are going to be attacked by Russia and this and that, and we are going to cancel the election. Or
when is the election? When is it supposed to be?
This is May 2027.
Okay.
Or what he would do is, as Bardella would be climbing in the poll, that would be triggering some kind of brawling in the street, because the leftists would never accept Bardella to be at the heads of the country. This would be triggering massive instability within the country, with protests, with fights in the street and this and that, and saying, okay, you see, we have two parties that cannot, in fact, discuss with each other, and we cannot leave one of them at the head of the state. So basically, because of this instability and this crazy story in the street, I am entitled, in fact, to cancel the election until, in fact, the stability is reset in the country. You don't know. But honestly speaking, I do believe that one of the two scenarios has its way, in fact, to make sure that he will be staying in power.
So there's really no answer for France to get out from under this tyranny at the moment.
There is another factor that I would like, in fact, to raise on the table. the Iranian crisis is not going to be settled down before long, because the Iranian having the higher hands and being in the strong position in regard of the negotiation, are not going to accept anything coming from Donald Trump. So basically, either Trump is raising the stake on a military point of view, which will end up into a gigantic disaster. Because if the Iranians, they are hitting on all the infrastructure and we cannot get a drop of oil in the next 10 years, you can imagine the consequences on the global economy in the world. It's going to be a disaster. So basically, in the next months or so, there wouldn't be any drop of jet fuel in Europe. Finish. End of the story. So what does it mean? The airliners are going down. No tourists. Yeah. And actually, tourism in France is a major part of our GDP. So you can imagine...
Europe is a museum. I mean, if you don't have tourists, your economy collapses. There's nothing else. Your industry is gone.
Yeah. 12% of the GDP. So basically, if you put the population in a situation, they cannot go vacation after working an entire year. They are exhausted. They cannot afford, in fact, to make a move, to go to a restaurant, to go out, to go to the beach, or to get some rest. On top of it, the tourist economy going down, you can imagine the tension that we might be facing in September. Because, you know, I see the level of violence that is growing and the level of discontentment that is rising in the country. People are really pissed off. Really. When you are when you go to supermarket and you discuss with people and you go to market in the farm or so on, you listen to people. You feel a level of frustration and anger that you cannot even imagine. So basically, what we are facing here is a sort of next episode of the Yellow Jacket. But this time, as everybody is going to be concerned, because the frustration is growing across any slice of the population, if there is a convergence, you can imagine what can happen in September or October. And therefore, this is at that moment that Macron is going to be in difficulty.
Do you think there will be, for lack of a better term, civil war or conflict between the ethnicities, like the white French and some of the migration, where you have a lot of no-go zones in France? Will there be a war between that population that doesn't want to assimilate in France and wants to make it a Muslim kingdom and the white population, or what? What do you think?
We are observing a level of aggression by the months that is growing in a very significant manner. And when I say significant manner, when I remember being 20 years old, I was going out at night with my friends, girls, guys, without any problem. Now, when you go out, you need to be very careful about where you go, with who you go, and how you go. And this level of stress that is increasing, one day there will be something happening, like it happens in England, for example, when those girls have been raped and killed after that, that will trigger, in fact, a movement of population. French people are very patient, you know, but this is like the same like across all the countries in the world. If you pass a certain threshold, then it will explode. So basically, we are observing a sort of convergence of economical difficulties with frustration and anger. We are seeing instability because of the level of insecurity that is growing in the country. And on top of it, a government that continue to be abusive in regard of the financial aspect of the way that people are living. Example, they could have been lowering the tax, managing, in fact, the oil distribution. No, they don't touch it. So basically, right now, we are paying the equivalence of $10 per gallon. $10 per gallon. When in every country in Europe, they have been lowering the the taxes in the way that people, they can move, in fact, to go to work. Because if you go to work to feed the car instead of your family, the way it happens in 2008 in the United States, actually, you know, and this is the reason why people have been leaving their houses, because they had to choose. I need to feed the family, or I pay for the car, or I pay for the house, but I cannot do for the three of them. I need to make some choice, and they were leaving the house. So basically, we are at the point where Macron wants to continue on the WEF agenda regarding the electrifications of transportations, pushing people to buy EVs when the cost of EVs is just like horrendous.
Yeah.
And on top of it, because the electricity price in Europe is indexed on the price of gas. And this is Germany who wanted, in fact, to implement these rules in the way that they will be killing our economy due to the non-competitivity of our electricity. So basically, if the guy is buying an electrical car, he will have to pay for an electrical bill, which is indexed on the gas. So basically, what is the point? You see? And you know,
it's a shame that, you know, it seems like Europe, from France to Germany to London, doesn't have the will to survive as a culture. I don't know.
The industry is collapsing because no cheap energy anymore. The population is getting old. We are getting replaced by a massive immigration of people that cannot integrate themselves in our way of living. Those people, they have been pushing very hard on the level of debt, to the point right now that there is no service of the debt. They are just raising money on the market to reimburse the debt. It's exactly what is happening in USA, actually.
It's
because what is coming in the next October or November, my God, this is like a very scary story. With because United States right now is obliged to reimburse something at $2 billion per day, because there is a massive rollout of the debt, which is like $9 trillion. I don't know how you're gonna do that, but this will have a major impact, because at the moment the market are going to realize that the level of indebtedness of the government is not sustainable anymore. And they are going to realize that the investment that has been made into the artificial intelligence without any business model, in fact, to get a return on investment, this is going to explode. On our side, this is going to be even worse because we don't have any economy. And the job is already shrinking to a point that this is unacceptable, you know?
One more question. I don't know if you saw it, but Zelensky and his crew in Ukraine did a big celebration of the return of the bones of Melnik, which they buried. He was a Nazi collaborator, big time fascist. And there's all kinds of images of Zelensky saluting him and people in the streets, Sieg Heil and all this. Did you see that spectacle in Ukraine?
Oh, yes, I saw it. I saw it. And what is scaring me is that none of the media in Europe are raising this issue at the level it should be, because this is a rehabilitation. Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Here in Europe, nobody. This is a rehabilitation of Nazism. But if you look at the background of most of the executives that are involved in the coup of Maidan and the support of Ukraine, all of them, they have roots related, in fact, to Nazism. Look, van der Leyen, his father was a good friend. No, his grandfather was a good friend of Hitler.
Yeah.
You take most of the leaders that are involved in this story, they are very close to it. And it seems to me that this is a sort of revenge that the grandchildren are taking and masquerading this and putting some makeups to show how democratic Ukraine is, when in fact, when you look at the fact, you know, you cannot sustain this. When
I think you're right. It's the Fourth Reich. I've said it for some time that this EU thing that is growing is very, very dark. and people have no idea. And I like that concept of revenge from World War II. I think that is entirely possible. That's what's happening.
You know, last summertime, I was in front of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France. His name is Jean-Noël Barrot. And there was about 800 people in the room. I was on TV in real time, and I have been asking this guy if he was endorsing the fact that in Ukraine, in most of the cities, you have boulevard, avenues, street, place on the name of Shushkevich or Bandera. People that have been participating to the Shoah by bullet and killing 1.4 million Jewish. And instead of addressing my question, because it was very embarrassing, because I told him that he was entitled to be sued and to have to pay a fee of 45,000 euro and 5 years in jail. And so basically, for his defense, he started to be completely hysterical, ignoring the question. Of course, he cannot answer it, because if he answered, he recognized the fact that there is a major problem in Ukraine regarding, in fact, the rebirth of Nazism and the rehabilitation of this ideology that is absolutely unacceptable. And especially
it's spreading to Europe and Canada as well. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you know, think about that. You remember who was Victoria Freeland?
Oh, I know.
No, not Victoria. Her name is.
You mean the woman in Canada who?
Yeah, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Chrystia Freeland.
Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia,
Yeah.
not Victoria. I'm confusing with Victoria Nuland. Chrystia Freeland's grandmother was, her name at that time was Chomiak. She was a great friend of Goebbels and Hitler.
Yes, I know.
You know, she was running with her husband a newspaper to sustain the Nazi ideology in Moldavia and Ukraine.
And she had a Nazi veteran in the Parliament of Canada, where they gave him a standing ovation.
I remember.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Thierry, I have to go. I could talk to you all day, but I have to go. We'll have you back, okay? And we'll talk about this some more. But thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, Todd. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Nuclear wasn't a product that was developed and to sell, really. What it really was a journey to get me well after my experience trying to immigrate and get married to an American citizen in order to get my green card. Towards the end, they send you for a medical, and that's where they sat me down and gave me 16 vaccines in one sitting. At the time, I knew when I was going through it that it's probably not good, but I didn't realize that I'm about to go through the worst health experience of my life. And that's when I went on this journey and understand that nutrition is actually your medicine. I've always heard the old people say your food's in your garden, but we didn't get it. And your body is always trying to heal itself. I mean, you know, when you cut yourself in a couple of days, it heals. And that is the process of homeostasis. Your body is always every cell in your body is always healing itself. And just like anything, if you bake a cake or you build a house, you need the right ingredients to achieve the result. Now, if you don't have the correct nutrition and you're not eating the correct food, it's like trying to build a house without bricks. Now, a lot of people, they say, what does nuclear do? Nuclear itself does nothing. It's not designed to do anything. Your body does the work. It gives your body all the things it needs balanced in, and it works together to deliver the correct nutritional supplement that you need as a human being to function normally.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, My Pillow mattresses and My Pillow mattress toppers as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
Okay, there's Mr. Shahine Gobadi. Hello, Shahine. Thanks for coming on today.
Oh, thanks, Todd, for having me.
I really appreciate you coming on short notice, but I wanted to get somebody on from Iran to talk about what's going on. First, what's happening with the Iranian leadership? Are there different factions, fighting for power in Iran? What's happening on the ground?
Well, obviously, that's a very good question, but one has to keep in mind that the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, who was at the helm of things for 37 years, was gone. The top brass of IRGC, that's the entity that keeps the regime in power, the repressive apparatus, was gone. So obviously, those who have remained are trying to do their best to keep the system at least appear on the surface to be cohesive. But and as you know, and this is the regime is still in some sort of a war footing, and that's in that situation you can create this aura of unanimity of sorts, given propagandizing about the enemy outside and so on and so forth, with street maneuvers by mobilizing your retinue almost every night to bring him to major streets and so on and so forth, to create this image of a strength, and then we are still here, we have not been overthrown, and so on and so forth. But what's happening behind the scenes obviously remains to be seen. Obviously, when the guns will go silent, that's when the real structure will start to appear. And given that there would not be someone with the authority of the previous Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, there will be a lot of factional feuding. There will be internecine feuding within the ranks. And that's when things will start to actually be evident of what's happening.
So there's a lot of talk of a decentralized form of command and control that was implemented by Khamenei. Is that working, do you think, from a military standpoint and leadership standpoint?
Well, honestly speaking, I don't know what you mean by working. If one believes that that means that the regime has not been overthrown, yes, the regime has not been overthrown. But no one, at least so far as the National Council of Resistance of Iran and the Iranian Resistance pertains, had any illusions that the regime will be overthrown simply by bombings. We cannot bring about a regime change from 10,000 feet up. The regime can be weakened as it has become weakened, but at the end of the day, if one looks at for ultimate solution, it comes down to a regime change, and that is done and would be done only and solely by the Iranian people and the organized resistance at its core. So in that sense, yes, the mullahs are still in power. IRGC, very much tries to keep the streets under control, tries to put a good face when it comes to the war situation. But one thing I thought is very, very telling, and I think that's the key, and I think that has not been emphasized enough in the Western media. There has been a rather unprecedented wave of execution of political dissidents starting from mid-March. Almost on a daily basis, political dissidents have been executed, more than 30 of them so far. It started primarily by the people who belong to the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, also known as MEK, which are the main resistance movement inside the country. 8 of them have been executed. Then a lot of those who were involved in the January 2026 uprising. Then you had some Kurds and you had some Baluchis. The reason being, and very tellingly, the regime announces them, basically trying to instill fear among the population, to tell them, look, if anybody thinks of another uprising, that would be their outcome. What I would describe as a strategy of noose, by hanging people, announcing it, so trying to create, an atmosphere of fear, given the regime's fragile situation. So in that sense, I think this is the key factor, showing the world where the regime sees the threat coming from, and the regime's basically Achilles heels, which I would call the enemy within. And that's the Iranian people and the organized resistance.
So let me ask you, you mentioned that the regime will not be changed by bombing. I firmly agree with you. We've been saying this for years now, in talking to you and others. Does the Trump administration reach out to you? I mean, I'm very good at seeing narratives. There was a very big narrative against you for a while after this war started, but that's gone away, I've noticed. So what's happening behind the scenes? Are you getting any interaction with the leadership in the West at all? Because you're a force on the ground to be reckoned with.
Actually, I think this is the only viable nationwide force on the ground. And that's the reality, that time is making it much more apparent. You see, for 20-some years, Madam Mariam Rajavi, the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran for the transitional period, maintained that while appeasement, which was the main policy of the Western governments on both sides of the Atlantic, I should say, for the past 3 decades, is going to be disastrous, and it obviously was disastrous. But at the same time, we said the foreign war is not a solution to the Iranian crisis. First, now it's evident that the world has a major Iran problem. Again, not only for the United States, not only for Europe, look at the region. Basically, you cannot find any country in the region which has not been affected. And everyone realizes that there will not be a solution until there's a solution to Iran, and that means a regime change. But the question is, how would that come out? And now time has brought us out that they see that the change should come from within Iran by the organized resistance. Now the question again comes down to what kind of a prowess and network the resistance has inside the country. I just mentioned the fact that the regime has begun this wave of executions, clearly pointed at MEK, which I think for any observer is a key point. Another very clear indicator was the major raid that MEK forces conducted against the Khamenei's headquarters on February 23. The date is important because that was 5 days prior the hostilities began on February 28. 250 fighters of MEK raided Khamenei's compound, which everyone knows something about security, knows that it's the most secure place in the whole country, the most well-guarded place. 100 of them were killed or arrested, but 150 of them returned back safely to their places, which clearly showed that there is a strong, coordinated fighting force on the ground. So, having said this, more and more people on the West are understanding that the key is the Iranian people and the organized resistance. They realize who is the fighting force. And now, slowly, I would say, the paradigm is starting to change.
Interesting.
The paradigm is starting to shift. That it is a very, very, I would say, naive and short-sighted to think that this whole thing will be resolved between the regime and the West. The missing factor, which is becoming much more evident now, is the role that the Iranian people and the organized resistance play. And as long as that is not given its proper weight and proper, basically, gravitas, there cannot be any cure for this problem. And more people are seeing this. We can see more voices in this support. People now giving much more credit to what the role the resistance should be. But obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. But as John Adams famously said, facts are stubborn things, no matter how you spin them. So facts are starting to dictate themselves. But,
well, I find it fascinating that for a while at the beginning of this phase of the war, There was a very big anti-MEK movement in the press with influencers and very pro-Pahlavi. But now that he's been shown to be a clown, that has disappeared. So, you know, and you've said for many years that you don't want arms, you just want political support. Is that still the situation, that the MEK just wants the bully pulpit of the U.S. to say, let's let them solve the problem?
Well, this is, our position has always been very consistent. We said we do not seek weapons, we do not seek taxpayers' money. We never advocated for boots on the grounds. We always said, look, recognize the right of the Iranian people and the organized resistance to overthrow the regime, recognize the right to bring down the regime, you know, give it the political recognition and political support that is deserved, and I would say hardly gained after years and years of sacrifice, toil, and blood. And that's still the same. And what's different now, as you said, the distraction of baby Shah, Reza Pahlavi, has been subsided. People have seen that, as you said, he does not have even a seat on the bench when it comes to the future of Iran. That his function has been simply helping the regime to survive by creating, you know, division within the opposition, being a very divisive force, a force of the past, not a force for the future. So that obviously has not been written off yet completely, but is again, another part of the reality is that people are seeing his true colors, and that he doesn't represent anything inside Iran and outside of Iran. And to that effect, Todd, I should be quick to add that on January 20 of this year, there will be a massive demonstration of 100,000 people in Paris to protest the wave of executions in support of a democratic republic in Iran, basically saying that the West should be much more vociferous and much more vocal in condemning this wave of executions, specifically because that sends the correct message to the Iranian people and to the regime that the Iranian people should be given their respect in their struggle, and also for a democratic republic, which means that the Iranian people and the international community rejects both a monarchy, which was the previous dictatorship, and the current theocracy, and is on the side of the true democratic forces for a true democracy.
Let me ask you, Shahine, I just got a comment here. There is an ongoing, I guess, effort to demonize the MEK. I mean, you're Marxist, you're a cult, you're lying, your 10-point plan is not true, you're going to take power and become something else. And we just had a comment to that. What do you say to that as a movement? I mean, I've spent a lot of time with you, but others haven't. So tell me your response to that.
Well, you see, in the course of the last 45 years that we have been fighting against the mullahs, and the MEK, the main member of the NCRI, has been fighting against the Shah and the mullahs for 60 years. Not only our members and activists have been executed in Iran unabated, but also in augmentation to this execution and torture and imprisonment campaign, there has been a massive demonization campaign by both the Shah and the mullahs. And they have spent enormous resources to this effect, basically churning out lie after lie, allegation after allegation, for a very simple reason. Because how else can you justify appeasing dictators, being the Shah or the current theocracy, where there is a viable democratic alternative in Iran? So this goes hand in hand. Actually, in order to convince the West to appease the mullahs went out of their way to call the MEK all sorts of names, all sorts of baseless, allegations, as you said, SCIF being Islamic Marxist, and we have rebutted every one of them in great detail. Because, for instance, even a high school, a student knows that you cannot be a Marxist and a Muslim at the same time. And it's simply, but this is a term that the Shah secret police, notorious secret police, Sawak, conjured up to prevent the young people to join MEK, which is a very patriotic, democratic, forward-looking, progressive movement.
Well, so, many of the people well, there's two parts to this question, and I'm getting more comments here. There's been some Iranians who have left the country saying that the MEK is not what the people want, and that that they're abusing people or whatever. So I want you to respond to that. But also, if you're not a threat to the regime and not an alternative, then why do they keep executing you? Right? I mean, how many have they executed? 130,000 of the
120,000 for the past 45 years. And I think the two questions you just raised go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Look, why the regime is so keen on the MEK? Because they know where the threat comes from. Because the young people are turning more and more on the MEK. Let me give you some numbers. During the January 2026 uprising, which is only 4 months ago, more than 2,000 members of the resistance units, which is the network of the MEK inside Iran, basically, were either murdered or arrested or basically disconnected. 2,000 of them. They are young Iranians. So if MEK is not welcomed and supported by the Iranian people, why all these young people join them?
Yeah.
More importantly, why a lot of the people who even are not affiliated organizationally to the MEK follow their path, their modus operandi. If you look at the charges that are levied against those who are being killed these days by the regime, they say they're charged against government centers, they go against the repressive apparatus of the regime. Whose concept and idea and whose strategy was this all these years? So basically, the notion that MEK doesn't have a standing inside Iran, I think, was simply done by the regime. It's quote unquote experts, it's friendly academics, it's people who were on the regime's payroll and so on and so forth, to prevent the people to see the real force for change, not only internationally but also inside Iran. You have to keep in mind that the main constituents of the MEK, first and foremost, as an Iranian movement, are the Iranian people and the Iranian youth.
Yeah.
So when they are being attracted to the MEK, it clearly shows that now, slowly and in an accelerating way, more and more young people realize who is the real challenger to the regime and who has the answer for the future. For instance, 8 of the MEK members were executed since late March. Look at the composition. Some of them were in their mid-30s, which means that they were not even born during the time of revolution. They were attracted to the MEK in recent years. Some of them were there in late 50s, and some of them were in their early 60s. So you can clearly see even the generational gap, so to speak, has been overcome for a very simple reason. The Iranian resistance is the cure to the Iranian problem. And the people who are on the ground, people who have the most to lose, are the ones who get attracted. So a lot of these things, as I said, it's all political game for very, very, I would say, nefarious and vicious political objective. But as time goes by, as the gravity of the Iranian situation imposes itself, more and more reality is known. And if one looks at the trajectory, you can see more and more talk of the MEK and its assessment and its role is becoming evident.
Let me just ask you, for the American audience, is very Christian audience as well. I was at one of your events recently, and I noticed a lot of the youth in their 20s, many of them are Christian. What do you have an idea of what the Christian population is of the MEK?
Well, MEK per se is a Muslim movement, but the National Council of Resistance of Iran is a coalition, basically encompassing all ethnic minorities in Iran, all ethnicities, I would say, and also religious minorities. As you know, Iran is a very diversified country. We have a Jewish population, we have Christians, we have Zoroastrians, and even, let's put it like this, people who are not believers, And they all function under the umbrella of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. And as I said, they have chosen a woman called Madame Mariam Rajavi to be the president-elect for a transitional period to guarantee that there will be a smooth transition and there will be chaos. Now, Madame Mariam Rajavi has articulated a 10-point plan for this transitional period, which should not be more than 6 months, with the primary task of setting the stage for choosing and electing a national and constituent assembly to write a new constitution. And one of the key elements in this 10-point plan is that the future of Iran, there would not be any official religion. There will be total freedom of religion, association, and thoughts. So religion should not be an issue for privilege or discrimination. All the religions should be allowed and would be allowed to practice all the rituals. And this should, as I said, be an issue for to be elected or be chosen for an office, nothing like this. The same for women. There should be total gender equality. It will be a non-nuclear Iran. So this is the Iran, Todd, that we have been fighting for and losing our lives for all these years. And I think, Todd, if I may use an interesting quote by Abraham Lincoln, who famously said, you can fool all the people for some time, you can fool some people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. Now, a lot of people realize, after all this smoke screen, the reality about this movement, that it's its position and consistency, and how no matter what the political situation is or what the political expediency of the day might be, they are very principled and they stick to their views because these are what we believe, and we think honestly this is what Iran needs.
Shahine, thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to get out on?
No, actually, I think it's important to pay attention on June 20 protests in Paris for a very simple reason. Because I think the world has not paid much attention to this wave of executions in Iran against dissidents. The fact that 100,000 people will come to Paris to not only ask the West to be much more vociferous in support of dissidents, to condemn the executions, but also to express what they would like to replace this regime with. And I think this show of force is very important in tandem with what's going on inside Iran and the activities of the resistance units, to see that there's a viable democratic alternative with grassroots support among Iranians who want nothing but political support, political recognition. And I think a good policy in Iran, a long-lasting, enduring policy, begins by paying attention to where it's due, and that's to the resistance and the Iranian people and their desire for change.
Shahine, thank you very much. We'll have you back down the road. I really appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you, Todd. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you for having me.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience, and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
The pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down, and even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today and let's get to work in your financial future.
All right, welcome back to the SCIF. Busy day today, went long with Thierry, but I want to go through some stories here. This one is important. The bond market is about to break Washington. This is on our business channel, the Manhattan.press. Please check that out. I'm an ex-bond trader. These are old war bonds. But the bond vigilantes may be coming back with a fury here. So go to the Manhattan.press and check that story out. It's important because that is the limit to our expeditions overseas when we run out of money and can't raise money in the bond market, which may be on the verge. We will see, but we're going to stay on that story. It's one of the themes. In fact, that's what I wrote my first book, Currency, about, is that exact thing. And funny enough, a conflict with the same people we're dealing with now. So if you want to get very smart on what's going on, check out my first novel, Currency. It's available anywhere online. Also, while I have you, let's bring up, before I forget about it, my book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. You can order at historyofbooks.com, signed copies, or get it anywhere else online that sells books. If you want to know about the MEK, which we just had Shahine on, and the history and all of it, and the youth involvement and the female involvement, I sat down with them at length and put out some extremely interesting information. So check out Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. All right, so we've got that story on the Manhattan, but there's another one. Mamdani is now looking to force property owners to change ownership to nonprofits or the residents themselves of buildings. It's a game, right? I mean, they go in and they say, okay, you can't raise the rent. We have rent controls. So the owners of the building, as inflation goes up, they can't take care of the building. And then the government comes in and says, well, the building's not being taken care of, so we're going to take the building from you and give it to somebody else. So Mamdani is now saying, block by block, he is going to go through, and this is a picture of the Bolshevik Revolution, which essentially did the same thing in Russia, some artwork from back in the day. But Mamdani is saying, block by block, he is going to come in and take over. There it is, another state property, wealth and capital. Take over New York. So if you're a wealthy New York resident, he's going to take your house. Funny, isn't it? But that's what they voted for. So please check that story out. Easton Gazette, which is our Maryland paper, eastongazette.com, which is Easton is a town out on the shore. Great writers we have in that area. South Carolina passes a grade floor ban for K through 12 public schools, meaning you can't say everybody has to get a D at least or a C at least. You have to have, the merit system needs to be in place, not participation trophies in school, and that will lead to better education. That's obvious, of course. Let's see. And D says, I am reading Currency. Great so far. Thank you, D. Appreciate it. This book in Connecticut, or excuse me, this article in Connecticut, let me bring that up a little higher. A.G. Tong says that Roblox is a predator's playground, and he's investigating. Tucker did a big series on this week, a big interview. But there's an entity called Trevor Space where the same thing happens, where they target minorities for, guess what, transgender in Connecticut and elsewhere. And Tong has a big blinders on to that because he supports the whole transgender effort. So, wow, a lot going on. Let me make sure we got everything. Oh, this one's huge. Ken Paxton won a massive crushing defeat against Cornyn in Texas. That is a good thing to see. We want a good piece of good news. That is a piece of good news because Cornyn is a weasel that needs to go away. And I guess Tom Tillis in North Carolina is another one. Thune is another one. There's a bunch of them. But we had a win last night in Texas, Ken Paxton. And there's already a narrative coming out saying, oh, Ken doesn't have, he's got too much baggage. He's too combative. Well, he's actually caring for Americans. So we're going to heavily support Ken Paxton in Texas. But great article on cdm.press. All right, my friends, that's the show today. I'm going to let you go now. A lot of changes are coming, so wait for it. it's coming, and there's going to be a lot more new stuff out on CDM and a lot more technology, new studios, everything, but it's coming. So stay with us. Thank you for your support. Tell people about the show. CDM_press on X, CDM on YouTube. Please subscribe. If you haven't done that yet, please go do that. CDM1 on Rumble. And check out, I forgot to discuss crazy show today. Check out our no ad subscriptions, my.cdm.press. That's my.cdm.press, and get access to all of our content with no ads popping up. It's been really successful for us, and we want to keep that going. It gives us income every month that we can count on. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Big names coming tomorrow too. So stay with us on the SCIF. Thank you.